Personality, or the word personality, is a term that describes your personal traits. Everybody has positive traits and negative traits within their personality. It's your consistent pattern of behavior. Riley called Larissa an introvert. That's a part of somebody's personality. You have to learn to mirror, she's had to learn to mirror an extrovert in the job that she does. But her default, and my default, is the same, believe it or not, is an introvert. Introvert. Oh, yeah. So our personality is largely shaped by our nature and our nurture. Your nature and your nurture. How you were brought up shaped your personality. And by your nature, just your God-given nature. So, you got to know that your personality wasn't chosen by you, but chosen by your nature and your nurture. When you live from your regenerated spirit, your personality becomes beautiful. Right? Because you learn where to put the brakes on the negative parts of your personality. You recognize, so let me just spill the tea here. Come on. In my negative traits of my personality, I tend to hold a grudge. I'm not going to look this way. I don't want any amens from this side. So I know that about myself. So I have to live out of my regenerated spirit and work to not do that. Y'all didn't know that about me, right? Yeah, I know you did. Sharon has been with me the whole ride. She knows what I've been. She's held a grudge for me sometimes.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, we just held the same grudge to support one another's grudge. So do you get what I'm saying? Do you know what some of your weaknesses are in your personality? And you know, if you live out of a regenerated spirit and you live Christ-like, I can't do that. And so I have to go to my Heavenly Father and tell Him how mad I am about something and someone, and how I don't like how they've done and acted and talked and whatever the situation is, and I need Him to help me. And then I also go to my husband, who is Mr. Forgiveness. I mean, if you punch him in the nose tonight, he'll take you to breakfast in the morning. He'll be over it by then, you know. So, you know, and I want to hold a grudge for a year. So, how many of you know some of your weaknesses in your personality? And how many of you know when that surfaces, whatever situation causes that to surface? How many of you have learned to go to the Father with it and just ask Him, help me? And then He's put people in your life, like my husband in my life, who is completely opposite of me in that way. And I go to him and get his perspective on it. And that's something I've learned to value in my husband. It used to annoy me, but now it's like, can't you ever take my side, you know? But now I'm like, okay, this is what happened, this is what they said, this is what they did, how do you see it? And then he tells me something completely opposite of what I was thinking and how I was processing it. And I'm like, I didn't think about it like that. And so I really learned, now I'm not 100%er. You can say amen if you want to say amen. I feel like the amen is coming up so strong. You go shout it, you go raise one of these tiles. Come on. I'm not 100% on it, and I'm growing in it, but I'm better. I'm better at it. But I'm trying to live from my regenerated spirit in that area. Y'all, oh God, I see the halos are blinding me tonight.
said, Lord, you're going to help me with this. You're going to take care of me. You're going to fix it. You know, I don't have to do anything, whatever it is what they sow, and I know sooner or later they'll get their chance, but right now you're going to give me peace. Because I'm like, I can't believe they just gave this. Yeah. And I'm texting Benjamin, and this is that, and he's like, calm down, baby. You know God's hands in this. I'm like, really? Not right now.
Now I want you to go get the gun. We're going to help God out. No, we don't say that. We think it, but we don't.
You can't tell out. You can't.
That's exactly it. You can go cry it out. You can go play golf and write their name on the golf ball. I mean, there's all kinds of ways. There's all kinds of outlets, you know. Yes, right.
I just go home. I lock my door and I cry out.
There, you cry it out.
That's good.
And I scream.
You scream. I've had to do that too. All right. So we got to learn to live from our regenerated spirit and let the Father. And you know what? The Father always works it out.
Yes, it does.
He always comes through. He says, "Vengeance is mine, thus saith the Lord. I will repay," and all of that kind of stuff. And so He handles it in His own way, and it all works out. And I've lived long enough to know that He's going to work it out. So, if I met you as a stranger, what's the first thing I usually say to you? If you meet somebody that's a stranger, what's the first thing you? You
Oh my God.
that is a generative conversation starter.
Hi, my name's Riley. Is your friends?
There you go. Hi, my name is Riley. What's your name? And I don't ask them, do you want to be friends? I'm not sure. I'm introverted. We ask them what their name is. What's something else we ask?
Hi, how's your day?
What do you do?
How was your day?
How was your day? That's a good one.
How old are you?
Where are you from? Those are the top three. What's your name? Where are you from? And what do you do?
How old are you?
Well, yeah.
You will learn that yet.
I will carry a grudge if you ask me that. So, if I ask you your name, I ask you what you do, and ask you where you're from, and you give me all those answers, if that's not your name, if that's not where you're from, and if that's not what you do, are you still you?
Yes.
Because a lot of people, their identity is wrapped up in what they do or where they're from. Or maybe even their name and what the connection of their name, how their name connects to something, some important way. So, if you couldn't tell me your name, couldn't tell me where you're from, and couldn't tell me what you do, you are still you. Right? Existence precedes conception. We've studied that throughout the first few lessons of this. You existed prior to conception in eternity. We talked about that. Before you were born, something started happening for you before you were born. Alright?
I was getting born in my mother's womb.
So this picture is going to represent you. Your true identity, who God created you to be. And if you were in my purpose class, this may look familiar, so just play along. Just pretend like you've never seen this before. Because I did this then. So this is going to represent you and your true identity. But before you were born, something started happening to you. You started getting labeled. Alright? So we're going to go through some of the labels that happened to us along the way. And as we talk about each of these, I want anyone that wants to come up here and get a paintbrush. And I want you to take paint and just mark over that beautiful picture. Riley was so excited we're going to get to paint tonight. I don't know if she's going to be excited about it now. Because this is exactly what happens to us in life. All right? So before you were born, what was determined that you were going to be? The first thing that your parents want to know.
Oh, boy or girl?
Are you a boy or a girl? So how is that labeling? Now, you know, with all the gender issues that's going on in the world, I'm not going down that path. That's not where I'm going with this. But how can, I want to make that abundantly clear, you were chosen by God to be a boy or a girl. And that should be the way it stays. But how can it be labeling to be a boy or a girl? All right?
People, if you're a girl, a lot of people could be mean to you. Say like, oh, you're a girl, you can't do this because you're not strong enough. You just stay here and do this.
There you go. Exactly. So somebody needs to come up here and just take a paintbrush and any color you want and just make a mark over that beautiful picture.
I'll just let her do all the markings and just tell you all.
Okay. She would probably be happy to do that. All right? And then some other ways that labeling,
You're not smart enough, you're a girl.
right? You're not smart enough. Some people want to have a boy first. When I was growing up, that was the thing, you have the boy first. So when they found out it was a girl first, they were disappointed. And that child carried that disappointment, right?
Some parents have the idea of like, oh, well, if it's a boy, he can go be like a firefighter or a police officer or this and that. You're like, oh, it's a girl, she's gonna be a teacher. So it's like a predetermination.
Yeah, they predetermine what you're gonna do in life.
A lot of cultures say boys don't cry or you can't.
Here you go. There you go.
Expectations what you set or set on you depending on your gender.
Exactly. All right? So here's another label. This is a label. You're black, you're white, or you're brown.
Colorblind.
Good. I am too.
I am too.
We need another. Are you gonna do all the painting? Anybody else wants to paint? Y'all have to arm wrestle Riley to do it. Because she is creative. Kim, are you not going to arm wrestle or come up here?
She's enjoying it too much.
So make a mark on the picture. So your color becomes a label. Right?
Me and Daisy, right?
Okay.
It's determined what you can or cannot do based on that. Your nationality. I love nationality. I did a report to our board. Craig will remember at the end of the year, our end of the year is July, and then August we do a report to the board for what has happened this past year. And so in the role of campus pastor, that's what you have to do. And so it's all numbers and charts and graphs and bullet points, and I just, it's so boring to do that. And so my creative side, I wanted to put faces to the numbers. And so I took a picture, and one of the things I celebrated was the diversity in our church. And I took a picture of our stage, and just on our worship team that Sunday, we had someone from Haiti, someone from Mexico, someone from,
There was not one identical one or whatever.
no,
All different.
it was all different. It was all different nationalities, and I loved it. But your nationality can become a label,
Yes.
right? All right, did you mark it? Easy, you know what kind of paint that is. Or are you gonna be fancy with it?
They asked me to make it
You gotta mess up the picture though, so that's what happens. Then your social economic status becomes a label.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that is.
How much money you make?
You're old.
What about this one? What about this one, religion, your religion?
Yes.
Very much so.
It's a label.
Later.
Where you will live. No. That's a label. You will live in When you were born, were your parents living in the suburbs? Were they living in the city? Were they living in the country? Were they living in an urban area? Were they living in the hood? Right? In the parsonage, yeah. So,
Definitely a lady.
all of this was decided, that what we just discussed was decided before you were born. Your gender, what nationality you would be, where you would live, your skin color, your socioeconomic status, your nationality, your religion, all of that. So, now you're born. You've arrived on the planet.
You have all these labels.
And you already have all these labels. You came here with all those labels. Already attacking the true identity that is there. Already just trying to distort it. Okay? So after you're born, the labeling goes crazy. Then we start getting our role in life. What is your role in life? The annoying little sister. The pastor's wife. The what? The baby of the family. The oldest. I was the oldest.
What about the preacher's kids?
The preacher's kids. Come on, say it. What role were you in your life?
I'm a military brat.
Military brat. There you go. Labels. Right?
Sacred cow.
Mhm. How about your titles?
Oh, God.
Your titles. People live from this. They live out of this. Right? Your titles in life. What's some titles? Am I disturbing the peace?
Please.
Come up here to shut the door. He's supposed to be down there teaching. What's some titles that we have in life? Nurse, teacher, mom, mechanic, all right? Uh-huh. Positions that we have in life. Our life stage. Oh, come on, somebody. I don't even want to get me started right there. Your life stage. Your status in life. The age group that you're in now.
We label the generations.
Uh-huh.
We label our generations.
They label our generations. There's the baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, labels. It's labels. And there's a whole study about that and all the definition of how you act and how you work and what you do, you know, all I've looked it up. I've studied it before.
With age groups comes peer pressure.
Peer pressure. All of that is labeling after you were born. It just keeps piling on. That's why I had you to write on labels the words when we first did it that night. So then we deal with circumstantial labels. Your circumstances. You're rich or you're poor. Labels. You're a good or you're a bad person. When people think of you, they think of a good person or a bad person. You're trusted. You can be trusted, or don't give them the keys to the building. Lord have mercy. trusted, right? You're labeled. We use words like this: dyslexic, it's a label. Autistic,
Sped, 504. Yeah.
and alcoholic.
ADHD. Yeah.
They don't even call them by name, they say, oh, she's a 504.
Oh my word.
Out of work, they don't even call them by name. So number, 504, so sped, so PM, they don't call them by name. It's very sad.
Wow. That's horrible.
Yeah.
Here's a label: alcoholic,
ADHD kid.
ADHD kids, bulimic. They're a success or they're a failure. They're a leader or they're a follower. They're an employee or an employer. So now you've grown up and you've got these massive amounts of layers on you, and look what it's got. Look what it's done to the original picture.
She's cute.
Right?
Daisy, I mean Daisy, Brian, we forgot my Daisy.
No, she's got it in the middle.
Oh, my bad.
So let's talk about ego. A version of identity is called ego, a Latin word for I, me, and mine. It's separate from you and from others. Sorry. Separate from you and from others. Ego is the Latin word for I, me, or mine. So if a person seems to begin every sentence with I, and what all I've done, and what all I've been doing, and where all I've been, and name dropping. Have you ever met anybody that name drops? Oh, it drives me crazy. That's the ego talking. It's not the true person. It's, or yeah, who you know. It's the ego. The ego is a false sense of self. Yourself based on labels that other people have painted on you. You form an identity based on these labels. Isn't that wild? People form an identity based on the labeling that we those are just a few of the labels that we covered. There's way more. That labeling isn't really who you are underneath it all, because your true identity is found in your spirit man. Your core. That's why we call it your core word, right? At the core of who God created you to be, in your spirit, is your true identity. These labels cause a false sense of self and identity, and the job of the ego all of your life is to protect it. The ego loves attention and hates scrutiny, unless it's scrutinizing you. It's happy to provide the scrutiny for you. So self-awareness is a huge superpower. Self-awareness is a huge superpower. So let's think of some reactions that we might have had today. And then ask yourself these questions. What part of me was threatened by that person and made me respond in a certain way that was outside of my regenerated spirit? I step back into my old man, right, instead of my new man, right? What part of me needed to exaggerate a story? I know y'all ain't never done that. Just stretch it, make it more juicy, more impactful. Yes. I caught a fish that big. And it was that big. What part of me needed to lie about something? What part of me wanted to look better than I was in the situation? What part of me just could not say, hold it, I was wrong. If I was wrong, I take the responsibility. The ego has taken nations to war. One person's ego has started a war, all done to protect one person's status, their power, their entitlement, and their superiority. Ego is the social construct to get you started on your journey in life. The ego, the sense of self, isn't good or bad, but it defaults to bad without guidance. Because of the fact that every human is born with an ego, this means Jesus had an ego. Think of the things that were said about Jesus by others in the Bible. They said, he's from Nazareth. What did they do? They labeled him by where he was from. Right? He is Joseph's son. You know Joseph. A poor carpenter. So label him. Right? He's a carpenter, and they're kind of on the low realm of the lower rung of the totem pole, or whatever you could call it. They're on the low. They're not wealthy people. He's a carpenter's son. So when he's teaching in the temple, they're like, hold up, hold up. He has no right to behave that way because he has no label and background to qualify him to speak in the synagogue. They're like, where did he get the education to speak to us? Because he's talking to them as a 12-year-old and knows the word better than they do. So the ego can go rogue on you and make you a bad version of you without guidance to make it serve you. And without that guidance, we just go from generation to generation to generation, carrying on the issues of our forefathers. Ego is a set of agreements between your childhood self and your parents. Ego is a set of agreements between yourself. You agree with the labels. You agree, yeah. Remember, I had you to circle the words that you agreed with on those labels that we wrote on. It's an agreement. Ego is a set of agreements between your childhood self and your parents. And then as you age, it becomes an agreement between you and your peers, then you and your spouse, and then the agreement between you and your politics, you and your nationality, you and your religion, and you and your roles in life. The ego's job is to protect that version of you, to protect those agreements. The ego has bouncers and bodyguards, and it deploys anger and blame and avoidance to protect itself, to keep the labels applied. Right? So we send out those little bodyguards of anger, blame, and avoidance to fight off this resistance to any version of ourselves that we want to keep intact. That's why it's so hard to get people to believe that they are who God says they are. That renewing of the mind, that metanoia word that we started out with, has to happen, an awakening to what is truly true about myself. And then this deconstruction of all of these labels and a reprogramming of our brain that God sent us to this earth on purpose, for a purpose, and all of this is trying to cover it up and keep us from walking out our true self, our true identity, and our true purpose. Because once your ego collapses, you're not sure who you will be and how you will do your day-to-day things. You won't know how to do it without doing it under those labels. And they give you that external identity. You're living from the outside in. So the ego's job is to keep it all intact. The ego is about keeping this all in place. Because if you lose your job, oh my word, who are you now? People go into deep, dark depression when they lose their job because their identity is wrapped up in that title or that position. if you lose your freedom or you lose your status, based on what you've collected so far, then who are you? If all of that is removed, who are you? Are you still you? The ego would now say you failed, or now you're shamed, and then another label and another layer happens. So basically, we were born hijacked. And it's just the plan of the enemy, y'all. It's the plan of the enemy to make sure that we live under all of this. And we need to take our life back. And that's the whole purpose of this class in KLA, is for you guys to know who you truly are, at the core of who you are, and then to go on who you are. Take your life off of autopilot and fly your life manually. You know that you've got some stuff on board that you didn't agree to choosing. And it created a default mechanism in yours and in my humanity that drives us back to a place that we don't want to be. And I've said this in here before, I believe. Don't let shame rob you of your fame. Don't let any shame that has happened. Merrick is out there doing these hand motions. When I preach, they do this roll with their hands down, and he's out there in the window doing that. Oh, it distracted me. So don't let any kind of shame, any of those words that you wrote down that first night on those labels, that's shame. And the enemy brought it through whatever set of circumstances and whatever person that gave you that name, he brought it through those people. They passed their pain on to you, Jabez, remember that? And he is using it to keep you from being who you're supposed to be. Now, I want to give you an example of this in the Word. And it's found in Judges chapter 6, and it's the story of Gideon. Love, love, love that story. Gideon was hiding in the winepress, threshing wheat. Remember that? The people of God would plant their crops, grow their crops, and at harvest time, when they were harvesting these crops, these enemies from the east would come in and just take all of the crops for themselves and leave the people of God to starve. And so Gideon, he is hiding in the winepress where nobody would think to look, trying to thresh some wheat for his tribe and his family. And the angel of the Lord, the enemies were the Amalekites, the Midianites, and then more people from the east. So the angel of the Lord shows up, and sits down at the winepress. Now, the angel in his greeting of Gideon creates a disruption for Gideon, because he calls him something that he doesn't recognize within himself. He greets him as, "Hey, hello, you mighty man of valor." Right? So he's calling him by his true identity. Now I've got a question for you. Do you think the angel came up with that name in that moment?
No. God gave it to him.
It was his name from the beginning. It was his name in eternity before he ever arrived on the scene. So Gideon is like, have anybody ever pointed you out in a crowd and you're like, me? Me? Are you talking to somebody behind me, or are you talking to me? That's how Gideon reacted. Me? You're talking to me? And then he goes like this. He said, "I'm a farmer." Label. I'm a farmer. So he's talking about his occupation, what he does for a living, right? So he's identifying as a farmer. And then he said, "You think I'm a warrior?" Then he says this, "I'm from the So he refers to his nationality, right? He refers to his nationality, another label. And then he says, and I'm not only from the smallest tribe, I'm the youngest in the tribe. So he used his age group to come back at this angel to say, you're talking to me? You're calling me the mighty man of valor? So this is where, this example is an example for us. This is where we build up evidence to talk ourselves out of the dream that God has put in our heart. I can't do that because I'm from this tribe. I'm from this age group. You talking to me. You want me to do what? So we build up evidence. Oh, I'm this color, I'm this age group, I've never done that. I work at this, I come from this side of town. Come on, right? So we start building up the evidence to talk ourselves out of what God has put in our heart to do and be. We say things, I'm a woman. Come on, ladies. I'm a woman. We say, I'm a minority. Me and my husband, we talk about this all the time. Somebody said something to us about minorities in our church, and me and my husband said, we are the minority. we're the new minority now in our church. We say, I didn't finish school, so I can't lead that business. I can't step into that role. I didn't finish school. Right? We say, I didn't have a father growing up. My mama wasn't around to raise me. We say things like, I've got a felony on my record. Come on. Or I've been an addict for years in my life. And every time we say things like that, we're building up evidence to talk ourselves out of doing what God is calling us to do. Come on. So we build up a story to support who we really see ourselves as. And here comes this angel with this high calling, this angel that has classified information about me that I don't have on myself. This angel is speaking out of his knowledge of how I was designed, but I'm living out of my knowledge of what I grew up around. It's quiet in this Presbyterian church. The angel was speaking to Gideon out of his knowledge of how Gideon was designed, what Gideon was called in eternity, before his mama ever birthed him on earth. And Gideon is living out of his knowledge of what he grew up around. All those labels that we started with, right? So now we get to decide, class, we get to decide which one of those entities is going to win this fight that we're in. What you were designed to be, or what you grew up around. Y'all ain't saying nothing to me. What are you so quiet about? I feel conviction in the room. We're going to give an altar call. Because one of them will decide the trajectory and determine the trajectory, can't even get that word out, of our future, what our future will be. The struggle most believers have is the constant tug of war between their humanity and their divinity. Between their soul and their spirit. And we have allowed people to put us in a cubicle of their understanding of us. And when we do that, it exiles us to live the rest of our life off of their understanding of you. When all you need to be concerned about is what he called you, what he named you. We sing it. I am who you say I am.
They don't believe it.
Come on. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say. Ooh, we come down front. We get out of our seat. Come on down front and stand down there. We sway and we're lifting our hands and we walk out the door and go get in the car and we're like, oh, I'm nothing. I'm horrible. I'm never going to make it. And we start, because we know it's true, but we don't believe it's true. Because when you believe something, it affects your behavior. Your behavior is a sign of what you believe. So, there can't nobody be you but you. You are an original. You're one of a kind. Nobody has your fingerprint. Nobody has your voice print. Nobody has your style. Nobody has your flair. Nobody has your grace. Nobody has your creativity. Nobody has your gifts. Nobody has your swagger. Come on. And this angelic voice is calling you something that you don't see yet. And I know it's true because when Miss Sherry was here last week, some of you were having trouble remembering your action words and your core word. And I don't know if you saw it, but she got a little ruffled. She got a little upset about it because she's so passionate about it that we got to get this. We got to get who we are at the core of our identity. I mean, what if we went into the schools, and I'm real seriously going to try to do this. Pastor Cedric has this opportunity to get into the schools and do school assemblies with some curriculum that he had in the past. And I'm going to ask him if I can go in and do this. I did this with the interns last week. I did this, I was texting my brother this morning and helping him find his core word. And then I sent him his action words. I was like, you need to pick out your 3 action words. He said, well, I'm about to step into a meeting, so I can't do it. Everywhere I go, I'm trying to help people figure out who you are at the core. The core, that angelic voice that's saying it, right? It's calling you that, but in the back of your head, you know, there's something there. I could be more than this. The angel has called you something that does not reflect in your feelings or your circumstances. And this is how I like to say it. I didn't know I was me. I didn't know I was me. I thought I was the labels. I thought I was the status, the position, the title, the gender, the circumstantial labels, the places I grew up around. I grew up poor. I thought I was all of that until I found out who I was at the core. I didn't know I was me. And until you came to this class, you didn't know you were you. Sometimes the scariest bridge to burn is the one between you and the person you thought you were. Well, we need to burn the bridge tonight. Anybody bring your cigarette lighter?
What?
Ah, that was a little trick there. I just want to see if anybody stepped in there. I ask Marissa that all the time. Marissa, you got a cigarette lighter? She's like, no. Just a test.
Remember Friday?
Yes. So what happened with Gideon? Gideon dropped his wheat because someone called him a warrior. Gideon now will lead the army that drives out these people that were coming in and stealing their food and their crops every year. Gideon will lead that army that drives out the Midianites, and he will render the Amalekites helpless, and he will take less men to kill more people than we have ever seen done in the history of scriptures.
Come on.
If he can just get out of the wine press, threshing wheat.
What's one?
It was where they made wine. Yeah, but it was grape juice. It starts out as grape juice. It was a place of hiding for him. That's really what it was going on. So are there any labels that you're hiding behind that you need to identify those tonight and drop your wheat and grab your sword, because God has something greater and bigger for you to do in your life? Gideon was shocked to find out that he was the man that he had been praying and asking God to send. You read that story, he was complaining to God because he was like, God, we've heard of all these miracles you did. You parted the Red Sea, and here we are out here starving to death, and we are your people. Where are you at? We need somebody to come in here and rescue us and fight these enemies off and get rid of these enemies in our life. And turns out he was the man for the job. Right? He was shocked to find out that he was the man that he had been praying and asking God to send. He was the guy that he had been waiting on God to send. He didn't know that he was trying to find in other people what God had placed in him. And he was asking God to send what he already was. Drop your wheat and grab your sword. Because you are warriors. All right, I want to hear some takeaways on what you've heard tonight. Y'all been so quiet. What's wrong?
Feels so good. You
Okay.
talk.
Yes, ma'am.
One of my takeaways was basically something I've been struggling with for a long time is not caring what other people think and just getting out and doing what you want to do instead of just like, oh, what are they gonna think of me? Oh, are they gonna think what are they gonna think this and that and this?
Go on who you are. Just be you. Yes.
I like the don't build up evidence against the calling God has on my life. Like, that's a good quote.
Don't build up evidence to talk yourself out of what you're supposed to be and do in life. Something else? Some other takeaway?
I love that the angel knew who he was even before.
From the beginning. He didn't come up with that name in that moment. It was a name that he was named already in eternity. Yes?
So I get the whole, how we label ourselves, and for me, it's really easy to say, oh yeah, I labeled myself as fat, blah, 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 blah. But I think that what was basically, and I was trying to get your words exactly, but basically what I understood is what other people are thinking about ourselves, about us, it's like we're allowing them to rule us, but it's kind of like subconsciously that we're doing, like, we're just
You're allowing it, yes. That's where you have to have this awareness of who you truly are. And once you know that, yeah, it's the enemy's job to send people that aren't confident in their own identity and don't know who they are. And so they want to make sure that they pass their pain on to you. And so they give you all these labels, and if you don't know who you truly are, then you'll start looking like this.
But it's like you said, we know that we're not them and who we are in Christ, but we sometimes don't believe it because it's been
Cigarette planters.
Strike that match.
Tivaka, she said, I think the quote that followed it was, we've allowed people to put us in a cubicle of their own understandings.
Mhm.
That's the quote she was talking
Oh, something like that.
about. We've allowed people to put us in a cubicle of their understanding of us.
Yes,
I think
Claudia?
that was a very. that
When
was
you
a very
live
good
from
one.
you, regenerate spirits, your personality becomes more beautiful.
Mhm.
So what he said is very true. I think it's very important that we get that. And I'll just say this for myself. Growing up, ego was a very prideful thing to have. And I kind of always heard it said that if that man has a big ego, it was kind of always related to the man.
Mhm.
So it's really something that we all have. And then
Oh,
what's
yeah.
really, that we all have, and really that it's there to protect itself and its label.
Mhm.
So, it makes sense. And then you mentioned anger, blame, and avoidance. How much do we see that in ourselves and others? And that's the behavior we see, and that's really what they're protecting is that ego that has all of these labels attached.
Exactly. It's crazy.
Yeah, that was kind of a revelation for me to know how deep this can be.
But people don't take God at His word. That's where they get in trouble. They just believe it, just the way you read it, and the way you've heard it all your life, or since you got saved. Believe in what you read, that He will fight the battles for you, that He will make the way straight. And that's where they get messed up, when they get their eye off the Lord and on people.
It's like we said, our struggle is what we believe.
Yeah.
What do we really
We
believe?
know it, but your behavior will always, what's the word? It will demonstrate what you truly believe.
Yes. If it walks like it does.
Dylan?
I think something important is that false labels don't always have to be negative. They're we typically don't build egos on things that we consider negative traits. Our ego is something that we're proud of, and so a lot of times with creative people, the hard thing is to separate your personality from your or separate your identity from your talent. And so I see a lot of creative people get their feelings hurt when someone doesn't like the talent that they did. They'll say like, well, I didn't like the way you sang that song, or I didn't like that thing you painted or whatever, and they get offended because they've tied their talent to their identity, which is part of their ego. Then they tend to lash out and they take it personally because they've tied their talent to their identity.
Yes.
I think from a man's standpoint, man has to stop that label. If you got other people around you, then they gonna label you from the time you get there to the time you leave, you need to put a stop to it. But if you don't,
It affects you.
there's always a problem later on. Because it's downplaying me when I'm trying to do something, and then they just,
So the first place that I heard about your core word was from a teacher in a school with, like middle school age kids. And she picked me up from the airport and was taking me to speak at a women's conference. She was the lady that they had to come and get me and take me to the church. And so we're just chatting and getting to know one another, and she was telling me what she does, and she told me about doing this with, she was the principal of a school, and they did it through all the middle school ages. And they had the child to pick out their core word, and they made these paper arrows. And you know how classrooms would have those boards, those decorative boards outside of their doors, and I don't know if they even still do that now, but they had their name and their word on that arrow. And she said every time that they had behavioral issues with a child, they would take them to that board and find their arrow and find their word, because your core word is directional for your life. And they would say, are you behaving out of this word, or were you living opposite to this word? Were you going in a different direction than this word? And she said it corrected like 90% of the behavior issues in their school. It just completely transformed their school when those kids learned to go on who they truly are at their core. And it blew me away. And so I got to studying it, and as I read Jamie Winship's book and have listened to several of his YouTube teachings, I realized he is using people's core word. He's helping people find their core word. He doesn't call it that. But I had done that, even had Project Hope make me some wooden arrows, and we paint them with chalk paint, and we'd have somebody that can write a really pretty script writing, we'd write people's core word on it. Even did that as a small group with some ladies, and I thought, that is what this is. It's finding who you are at the core, your true self, your true identity. And I don't know if have I shared James 1:18 with y'all? Have I shared that in here? I'm gonna share this to close it out. And this kind of blew me away. I don't know if do we have a marker? Those markers and we listed.
It's your lucky day.
We've got one stashed back there that so far nobody has found. James 1:18 says, Dylan.
Oh.
By his own choice, he gave us birth by the word of truth. So that we would be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. So this word choice here, talk about God. By his own choice, he gave you birth. You just stop right there. Right? By his own choice, he gave you birth by the word of truth. So that we would be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. So the word word choice is a Greek word that means the affectionate desire and deliberate resolve of God. His affectionate desire and his deliberate resolve. That's what choice means. By God's affectionate desire and deliberate resolve. Sounds like God had his mind made up about you.
Come on.
Somebody needs to wave a hanky on that one. Then it says, he gave us birth. And the word birth is a Greek word, and it means to swell as a wave, and it means to be pregnant. And he gave us birth by what? By the word of truth.
Come on.
And the word there for word is logos. Which logos is the sum total of the logic of God.
Come on.
So that, and this word that is a Greek word that means, I lost my, is a Greek word that points to a conclusion. It points to a conclusion. So that we would be a kind of first fruits. First fruits. And first fruits comes from the word that means he rehearsed us from the beginning. It's a Greek word when you break it down. The first part of the word means to rehearse from the beginning. And then, so he rehearsed us from the beginning. And then of his creatures, and that word creatures is, y'all check this out. That word creatures is a Greek word that means the proprietorship of the manufacturer who holds the copyright. Y'all ain't ready for this. Y'all, is that not awesome? So I paraphrased my version of the Bible. I'm writing my own version. My paraphrase of this verse is, we were the affectionate desire of the Father from the beginning. And in the conclusion of his proprietorship, he became pregnant with us and birthed us as a copyrighted word out of the word.
Amen. Show enough.
Wow. Mic drop. That's what that means. If you take all the Greek meanings in it and put it together and paraphrase it, we were the affectionate desire of the Father from the beginning, and in the conclusion of his proprietorship, he became pregnant with us and birthed us as a copyrighted word out of the word. A word out of the word.
Come on. Come on.
Every one of your core words is a characteristic of Christ. And I've got scripture for every one of your words. If you want your scripture, I can give you your scripture. I had scriptures for every one of the words that I put on those pages that you chose your word from. So you are a word out of the word. So why? This is why the enemy starts before you're born, trying to smear. He does not want you. He doesn't want Christ being manifested in the earth through you. And you are a manifestation of Christ in the earth through your true identity. And if we ain't careful, we let all this mess, where we were born, what color we are, what nationality we are, what our title is, whether we're poor, whether we're rich, where we live, all of that cover up the word out of the word. All right. what'd you say about copyright? You cannot use anything that's copyrighted without the permission of the owner. Y'all better stay with me. It's illegal. It's illegal. What'd you say? Say it. You can do it.
Well, that was like 2 weeks ago.
Isn't that awesome? You are copyrighted.
In other words, the enemy can't infringe on our copyright.
What, Mark?
It's illegal.
Yep.
He is crossing the line to do all that.
Hey,
The enemy can't plagiarize.
So. The enemy's trying to tell you lies about yourself, and then you're copyrighted.
She texted me that. She said, the next time the enemy tries to tell you lies about yourself, you need to tell the enemy, I'm copyrighted.
You can't plagiarize us.
And the enemy can create, he only makes a copy.
Right. The enemy can't create, he only can make a copy, which is illegal to copy what's copyrighted.
He only has the
Stop giving
authority.
credit to the author.
Huh?
He only has the authority.
There you go. He only has the authority that we give him. He has zero authority. Now you're waking up. All right, it's 8:14. I don't want to keep you any later. I want to show you Jamie, but we'll watch his video next time. But I want